Let me try that again now that my mic's not muted. Hey, everybody. We're going to get started here in about 4 minutes and 46 seconds with an extra special edition of Perspective Shift. Today, I've got something I think is really fun planned for today, and I'm excited to see if you also think it's fun. What's up, Lanny and Muhammad? I am well. Thank you for asking. I am doing well. I'm here in normally sunny San Diego, but today is a nice, cloudy, rainy day. So that's kind of nice. What's it like where you're at, Lanny? How are you? And I'm just going to take a minute here and share this on my Facebooks, which I invite you, if you're watching on Facebooks, to do that as well. So here I go. Let's see. As always, the challenge is, can I find it on Facebook and then share it with any sort of ease? Oh, I'm also going to paste in the comment section for you on Facebook. I'm going to try the link for today's Perspective Shift article, should you want to read it. Either now or later. Now and later. I don't like now and later. It's like candy. They always get stuck in my teeth. But anyway, if you're watching on Facebook, I just put the link to today's article in there, and now I'm going to attempt to share. Let's see what happens. Copy link. Rate. Close that. What's on your mind, Facebook guys? What's on your mind? See that right at the top? What's on your mind? I don't remember it saying that in the past. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention. Got a little something extra parentheses fun, perhaps, for today's show. And then paste that link, and then copy all of it. No, I guess I don't need to, because I'm already on the other page. All right, post. There we go. Share successful. Did you share? Have you shared? That's the end of my pre-service pitch there. What's up, Jesse Hawkins? I know, the wavy hair today. Letting the natural wave come out. Matching the weather, maybe? I don't know if that makes sense. What's up, Starkovich? Glad to have you here today. Who else we got? We got Christine Vanderval. Hi, Christine. Glad you're here. Hi, Mercy. Hope Minneapolis is treating you well. What up, Lean Hard? Hi, Fred Freeman. Oh, Lanny's from New York. That's exciting, I think. I've been to New York once, a couple years ago. And I'll say this, my wife loves New York. I appreciated New York. It was a bit much for me. I think that's probably why I like San Diego so much. Just a bit more chill. Wait, why are you saying that Mandy has her foil hat on? Did I miss Mandy's comment somewhere? Susan, thanks for hopping over from the Zoom to here. Way to do all the digital things today. Hi, Leo. Welcome back. Hi, Melanie. My kids and myself loved those chocolates that you sent, by the way. Melanie sent us some special chocolates from Erie, Pennsylvania, and they were really good. Were is past tense because they're gone. They didn't last that long. Oh, you're getting your hair done right now, Mandy? That's exciting. I just did my hair the other day. Give it a fresh buzz on the sides and the back. All right, we're gonna get going here, and it looks like 23 seconds. Don't forget to share if you haven't shared yet. I'm excited for today, y'all. We're gonna talk about picking and choosing. Everybody does it. Everybody. Like if the REM song says, everybody picks and chooses. Good afternoon, and welcome to Perspective Shift with me, your host, Colby Martin. On today's show, we're going to talk about how picking and choosing when it comes to the Bible, everybody does it. And I'm so over this idea that some people don't, and they accuse others of doing it. If this is your first time with me over on the Facebooks, go ahead and just do me a favor and click that like on the Facebook page. That'd be nice. I was trying to think of a better reason for it. I don't know, just to be nice. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't yet clicked subscribe, ding, click that. Actually, I hear that on YouTube there's a subscribe button and there's an alert button. So I think the best of the best do both, although that feels like a lot to me. But I think the alert button is so that you are told when I'm going live, which BT dubs I do every Wednesday at 2 p.m. anyway. So how about you just put a recurring event in your phone? Wednesdays, 1:55 p.m. Bling, get an alert and come hop on. That feels like a lot. Nobody really needs to do that. I was just kidding. Yeah, I'm super stoked for today's topic, friends, because I've been exploring the Bible for a couple weeks now. I've been in this Authority of the Bible series. And today we're going to get to this all important topic of picking and choosing. And I've got a little fun, creative way to do that with you that I'm excited. As always, I love having you here. I see your comments in the Facebooks and the YouTube, so feel free to drop them as anything comes up to mind or any questions, and I'll pause periodically to address them. But friends, I just want to say, glad you're here. Welcome to Perspective Shift. Thanks, Andrew, for the kind words about the hair. It's at that length now where I can just sort of let the natural wave and the natural curls do their thing. And it provides another couple weeks of hairy styles. So that's fun. And how great is this? I have two people. We got Phil Spencer, who says it's on their Google Calendar, and Andrew Chaufflet. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, Andrew, has also recurring on your calendar. That I think is my best thing I've heard all day. And that includes hearing that Congress passed the next trillions of dollars of stimulus plan. This is better. That news right there is better. Okay. Today, you can see at the bottom here, again, if this is your first time to Perspective Shift, welcome. Perspective Shift is the name of my newsletter, which you can get if you just go to this URL right here, colbymartin.substack.com. And I write these, and that goes out every Wednesday morning, and they land in your inboxes. And it's me writing about religion and spirituality and psychology. And I have a great time writing these articles. But then sometimes what I like even more than writing, although I do love the writing, is then hopping on live here on the YouTubes and the Facebooks to be with you all and to talk about the article. And so here's how this works. I now go to this scene, and right next to me is this magic iMac. I'm not sure what that picture there is. And this is today's article, and I read it and engage with you. And you have questions, you have comments, you leave them in the comment section, and I see them and I put them on the screen. And Mandy also has a watch that reminds, God, you're making my day with all this. And then we just have a good time today. So I got a little extra something special for today's segment as we get to, if you haven't read it yet, there's a moment here where I have a conversation. And I'm going to attempt to do something I've never done before here in a live show. So we'll see how it goes. I should take a drink of water because I believe in hydration. So wherever you're at, would you also take a drink with me? Corey posed a question recently. Which version of the Bible is inerrant? KJV, ESV, SWV. That's funny. Yes. I like you, M. Corey Dandridge. I'm glad you're here. All right, let's dive into the article and see what you have to say about this topic, this idea of picking and choosing. Yeah, cherry picker. Here we go. And it starts with this segment on treating the Bible like an all-you-can-eat buffet. One of the stock complaints, the most common complaints that more conservative-leaning Christians lob at their more liberal, siblings, it goes something like this. You just pick and choose which Bible verses to regard and which ones to discard. The old pick and choose argument. The oldest, and in my opinion, naivest Is that a word? Naivist? Most naive critique hurled by some Christians against others. Those who maintain that the Bible is inerrant and infallible have convinced themselves that they don't pick and choose, whereas those who have, I'd say rightfully, left behind such untenable biblical notions of inerrancy and infallibility, they are guilty of this convenient selectivity, this picking and choosing. I've often heard from my more conservative evangelical counterparts that some people, aka yours truly, we treat the Bible as though it were just nothing more than like a Chinese buffet. We scoop up a bit of the Szechuan chicken, we grab a slab of the barbecue pork, and definitely a pile of the Kung Pao, but then completely, if not, I don't know, arbitrarily sometimes, ignore the chow mein or the broccoli beef. And if that's what's happening, if it's just arbitrary picking and choosing, then yeah, I guess I agree. That does kind of sound bad. But here's the thing. While I'm not opposed to Chinese food metaphors for scripture, and now I really want Chinese food, I am very much opposed to the suggestion that only some Christians pick and choose. Yeah, I'm opposed to that. Only some do. You do it, but you don't. We don't. You do. I'm opposed to that. And I'm also opposed to the idea that picking and choosing is somehow a bad thing. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here today too. The reality is picking and choosing which Bible verses one regards as authoritative. And if you're watching this and you haven't been with me for a few weeks, I've been exploring this idea of the authority of the Bible for several weeks now. So this would be considered like part 6 in my kind of current and ongoing series on the authority of the Bible, which you can get all of those articles here at my Substack page, or if you're on my YouTube channel, they're all there as well. Where was I? Oh yeah. So the picking and choosing, which Bible verses we'll regard as authoritative is actually, I would argue, just good, reasonable Bible reading. In other words, I submit to you that, quote, pick and choose is just like slang for interpretive discernment, which means, and here's the tweet, y'all, everyone picks and chooses. Everyone. All right, I'll pause there and let me know if you're watching this, if you have come across this criticism, if you've come across this critique from people. So maybe you yourself, like me, might identify as a more progressive and or liberal Christian. Let me know if you have run into this where you have friends or family or people from maybe previous church communities that just accuse you of just picking and choosing. You said that you ignore the parts of the Bible you don't like and you just take the ones you do like. Would you let me know if this is something you've come across? Because it's certainly something I run into all the time. And I'm just wondering how many of you have also come in to run across this idea that you're just picking and choosing when it comes to the Bible. So back to Corey's question, which version of the Bible is inerrant? And Corey says, or Corey, sorry, I don't know how you prefer to be referred. A good friend answered, the one which supports my worldview. Yes, that one. That's the version of the Bible I like. Oh, your pastor's Josh Scott. Oh, that's wonderful. Josh is a dear friend of mine. We have shared beds together on trips. We have moved giant trees out of the road in the middle of North Carolina windstorms. Anyway, Josh Point recently caused a national hullabaloo when he said the Bible's not the word of God. Yeah, I saw how that post just sort of blew up. Good gravy. Christine says, yes, Christine is familiar with this whole you pick and choose. Mercy has definitely been criticized for picking and choosing. Corey says Corey works just fine. Thank you, Corey. I like this. Andrew said, well, I like it because I guess I wrote it. Sorry. Reframing pick and choose as interpretive discernment makes a lot of sense. It's what the gospel writers do when they each retell the story of Jesus the Messiah, and it's completely appropriate. Ooh, I like that. I like how you sort of used the way that all 4 different versions of the gospel, and they are different, complementary in many, if not most regards, but they are different. Sort of this pick and choose, this interpretive discernment, like Matthew. The author of Matthew loved finding the story of Jesus, like how it connected to so many of these Old Testament prophecies. So he picked and chose which verses he wanted to illuminate and bring to the surface. Anyway, that's fun. Susan says, apparently, according to my cousin, I read a different Bible than she does. We all do. So the hope is that your cousin would at some point acknowledge that, yes, we do, and that's okay. And by different Bible, we just mean we have different interpretive lenses for how we approach them. Mandy says, yeah, my whole family doesn't really affiliate with me anymore. I'm sorry. Tells me this regularly. Or when they reach out to tell me how wrong and lost you are. Yeah, they just say, you pick and choose, Mandy. I'm sorry. Melanie has definitely come across this as well. I attended a church for a while. She says that was staunch about the inerrancy of the Bible, but nobody greeted each other with a holy kiss. Oh, Melanie, that's fantastic. Yeah. If you're so committed to the literal interpretation of the entire scripture, then why aren't you greeting each other with a holy kiss? What a great just little balloon to raise and say, can we talk about that for a minute? Hey, Kevin, my resident Episcopalian. Glad you're back with us. Yes, picking and choosing is a common criticism, which is funny since daily readings and scriptures assigned to Sundays on a 3-year repeating cycle. I like that. So in the more liturgical traditions, the lectionary, you are like intentionally picking and choosing the reading, and that's fun. Mandy, this is garbage. Satan has control over you, and it's only reason for depression. I cast out that demon of that lie through the camera and into your salon where you're getting your hairs done. Okay, let's move to the next section here. So now that we've established picking and choosing, where the critique is that some people just treat the Bible like it's a buffet, and you just sort of grab the parts that you like and ignore the parts that you don't like. But my suggestion is that everybody picks and chooses, if we think of picking and choosing as just sort of being our interpretive discernment for how we approach and think about and think critically about the Bible. And everybody does it. Everybody picks and chooses. Stop letting people tell you that just you do it and they don't. So this section is called Explaining This to Your Friends and Family, aka Brad. And today Brad's going to be the stand-in name for all the people that have ever told you that you pick and choose, but they do not. Now, the obvious objection to me saying that everyone picks and chooses, even you, Brad, is this. No, I do not, Colby. You are wrong. I take everything in the Bible seriously and equally and authoritatively. The whole thing, not just the parts I like or are convenient. To which Melanie says, well, are you greeting people with a holy kiss? Okay, Brad, mind if I call you Brad? Let's explore that claim a little bit, shall we? Because I don't think your stated beliefs about treating the whole Bible equally and authoritatively, I don't think your stated beliefs, where you think you don't pick and choose, and your lived reality of like how you actually engage with the Bible, I don't think they match up as much as you think they do. All right. So why don't you just pull up a chair here in my studio, Brad, and let's just have a chat, shall we? Okay, you and me, let's have a chat. Here we go. Brad, hey man, thanks for being here today. Did I really have a choice? No, I guess not. You neither picked nor chose to be here. Getting clever already, huh? Always. Okay, so you, Brad, believe that I, Colby, I pick and choose when it comes to the Bible, correct? That's correct. For example, like the Bible, it says that homosexuality is a sin, but you don't like that part because you have gay friends and you want them to like you and you want to be accepted by culture. And whoa. Slow down there, Brad. First of all, it's curious to me that you jumped directly to the topic of homosexuality. And also, that's annoying because I've literally written an entire book about how the Bible does not, in fact, consider homosexuality a sin. And also, I gotta say, it really is one of your weakest ideas that myself and other progressive Christians like me, we take our cues from culture when it comes to interpreting the Bible. Like the suggestion that we just want to be liked or accepted by culture, and so we disregard the parts of the Bible that seem faux pas or unwoke, is honestly an approach that I've really never come across. I don't know where it came from. It is the strawiest of straw men. Okay, well, what about verses that talk about God's wrath and justice? You talk so much about God being love, but you ignore all the references to the holiness of God. Okay, so you're suggesting that when I prioritize the characteristic of love over against something like wrath, then that is me picking and choosing? Roger that. Okay. Is there anything else, buddy, that you want to get off your chest before I respond? Yes. One more thing. Jesus said that he is the way, the truth, and the life, and that no one gets to heaven. Quick point of clarification. The actual quote is no one gets to the Father, and that no one gets to heaven except by me. Heaven, Father, same thing. You get my point. Well, I get something, but I'm not sure it's the point you want me to get. You don't like that verse because it's exclusive. It doesn't fit in your whole everybody's in malarkey. It shows how Christianity is the only true religion, and anyone who doesn't believe in Jesus goes to hell. I know that's harsh, but it's what the Bible says. And unlike you, I don't leave out parts that I don't like. All right, cool. First of all, great use of the word malarkey. But before I go on, I just need to say, Brad, seriously, thanks for sharing, bud. And believe it or not, I feel like I understand where you're coming from. I spent many years arguing similar things and thinking that if people didn't believe the same as me, that it was because they were just picking and choosing and not accepting the entirety of the Bible. So, brother, I feel you. Sure, I guess. Now, I have a few questions for you. And truly, they're not meant to be gotcha, but they're designed to help us maybe bring to the surface some of what I think is going on. First, I noticed that your hair is pretty short right now. Has it always been that way? Well, no, in college, I grew it down to my shoulders. And are you aware that Paul told the Corinthian church that nature itself teaches us that it is shameful for men to have long hair? Sure, I've heard that passage. And, well, come on, it's not Paul literally saying that it's sinful for all men to have long hair. Because it's not. I'm just sure it was like something specific to their culture, to their time. And for you, as you understand it, your choice to wear your hair long, even though Paul wrote that it is unseemly, that for you, this is not an instance of just picking and choosing which verses to regard and which to disregard. No, like I said, that verse is all about context. If it were something still applicable today, then yeah, I'd adhere to it. But I think it was just shameful back then. It's not for today. Okay, thanks for your honesty, Brad. Next question. Have you ever sinned? That's a dumb question. I thought these had a point. They do. I'm sorry. I realize that is a silly question, and it's also rhetorical. So let me ask it differently. Since I know that you've sinned in your life, I'm assuming that even though the book of Leviticus is very clear on the matter, I'm assuming you've never offered a burnt offering to atone for your sin. Again, that question is absurd. You know the answer. True, I do know the answer. But I'm curious if you can articulate why. Like, why have you never sacrificed a goat or some birds? Because Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice. He died on the cross and he put an end to the sacrificial system, which makes sacrifices an Old Testament law. It doesn't apply to us today. Well said, Brad. Well said. Not bad. But for you, again, I'm assuming that this doesn't count as picking and choosing either, correct? Because on the surface, it seems to me like you are choosing to regard New Testament teaching about the sacrifice of Jesus as a way to disregard, or you might say be free from, the sacrificial system in the Old Testament. Well, yes and no. Yeah, yes, I'm privileging the New Testament teachings over the Old Testament, but no, that's not picking and choosing. Okay, just one more question. Have you ever, sorry, I almost did that thing again where I ask you a rhetorical question that we already know the answer to. Since I know that you have lusted after women in your life, Brad, can you account for why you still have both eyes firmly located in their sockets? Come on, give me a break. No. Hold on here, Brad. This is important. Again, I know it's a foolish question in some level, but Jesus did say in the Sermon on the Mount that if your eye is causing you to stumble by lusting after another woman, then it's better that you gouge out your eye and throw it away than for your whole body to be thrown in hell. So I guess I'm wondering, what do you make of that? Because clearly you have both eyes still, and yet I'm also assuming it's not because you've decided that the whole body burning in hell is your preferred option. Jesus obviously was speaking metaphorically. About hell? No, that part's literal. The gouging out the eye part. Wait, why is that part metaphor, but the hell part is literal? It just is. Okay, and still, I wonder, what is your take on it? It seems to me like maybe you're picking and choosing to not take that verse seriously. No, it's not picking and choosing. It's understanding that he was speaking metaphorically. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. So let me attempt to state back to you what I've heard so far. When you read and interpret and attempt to apply the Bible, you have these governing principles, or you could say these guides that help you along the way. Yeah. And based on what you've shared so far, I'm going to make 3 statements. And I want you to let me know if these represent you well. I don't want to straw man you. I want to steel man you. Steel man. It's like the opposite of a straw man. It's where you articulate the other person's position in such an accurate way that they themselves would sign off on it. All right, sure, go for it. First, you recognize that some parts of the Bible were written and grounded in a particular time and culture in such a way that it might not apply to you and me any longer today. Yeah, sure, that sounds right. Second, there are other parts of the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, that were appropriate for and applicable to the Israelites under an older covenant and law, but that because of Jesus are no longer authoritative for your life today. I mean, you lost me a bit with that covenant language, but yeah, I think I get what you're saying. And yeah, I agree. Finally, you understand that sometimes Bible verses are meant to be read and understood in metaphorical terms, or maybe as allegories or poetry. And so taking everything as literal is not actually how you approach the Bible. Well, while it might be your primary way, you actually do see that sometimes you must take things metaphorically. Yeah, totally. Great. Okay. Thank you, Brad. I guess I just have one more thing to say and then we're done here. Sure. What's that? I'd like you to consider that when you accuse me of picking and choosing, that what is actually going on for me is that I too am being influenced by principles and guides that help me to read, understand, and apply the Bible to my life. Not only that, and Brad, this might really blow your mind here, I'm actually applying many of the same principles that you are. For instance, I also am trying to pay attention to when verses are grounded in a particular time and culture and what that means. I also treat some parts of the Bible as carrying more weight to it than others, especially the words and the teachings of Jesus. And I also appreciate the fact that the Bible contains a whole bunch of literary styles, and that interpreting things literally isn't always the best move. So when you see me land in a different place, holding a different belief than you do, I invite you next time, rather than dismissing me as someone who just picks and chooses, I wonder if instead you'll either A, remember our conversation here today and keep in mind that I'm not just arbitrarily grabbing which bits of the buffet smell yummy and ignoring the parts that I don't like, but I'm legitimately attempting to understand the text with many of the same tools that you are. Or maybe you'll go with option B and acknowledge that this whole picking and choosing, while on its surface sounds arbitrary and wishy-washy, is actually a reasonable approach to the Bible, and it's one that you yourself implement. You really like your run-on sentences, don't you? Brad, don't get distracted. I need you to hear what I'm saying. Both of us pick and choose. And I need you to stop pretending like your picking and choosing is somehow qualitatively different than mine. That yours is good or okay or acceptable, but mine is not. As I see it, if you want to maintain integrity, and Brad, you strike me as somebody who cares about being integrous. You have 2 options here. Either you acknowledge that both of us, indeed all of us who read the Bible and try to take it seriously, we all pick and choose, or drop that phrase altogether, man, and just stop slinging it at me Stop slinging it at others as a way to try and dismiss our faith as somehow less legitimate than yours. I know it's a lot, but seriously, I think you're going to start feeling better once you let this sink in. It's kind of like pooping. Like, you know how as a child it felt embarrassing to admit that you poop? That's why somebody made that brilliant little book, Everybody Poops, to help take the shame out of it. Brad, everybody picks and chooses. It's okay. That was a really gross way to end this. Yeah. Gross but memorable. Which, by the way, is kind of what I hope they put on my tombstone. Wow, Brad, thank you for joining us today here on Perspective Shift. Let's get a round of applause to Brad. All right, just tuning in here to some of your comments. We had somebody hoping to use the name Chad. Oh yeah, to go with that Karen song, Chad. I chose Brad. I don't know. Brad just felt to me like a nice chap, not one to be dismissed as easily as the Chads might be. Oh, this is great. Just kind of checking out. Thanks for indulging me in that experiment. I do have, I think, just maybe one last little chunk of the article here, and then I'll turn to some of your comments and questions. Oh, this is embarrassing. Ignore all this scrolling. Okay, it just ends with this. Hopefully that imaginary conversation with Brad was helpful. I'm just over this notion that liberal or progressive Christians, that we pick and choose, but that conservative evangelicals do not. I'm over this. It's all the Brads of the world. Bro, you do pick and choose. Stop acting like you don't. Stop acting like your stuff don't stink. Picking and choosing is just being reasonable, discriminate humans as we attempt to grapple with something as old and mysterious and powerful as the Bible. Yeah, we all do it. Okay, so now I'm going to tune in to just, if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to know what that was like for you to sort of witness this imaginary conversation between me and, maybe someone who's a stand-in for those conservatives in your life that have told you that you just pick and choose. Yeah, so Great God for You makes a similar point. If you take everything so literally, how come you're not killing your own children and avoid eating shrimp? Yeah, again, that is picking and choosing, but they don't call it picking and choosing. They have like a reason why they don't take that literally. That's great. It's the same sort of things we're doing. Like, no, we have reasons why we disregard that, or why we don't apply that, or why we interpret that differently, because we're grounding it in the culture. We're grounding it in the context. We're grounding it, all that. Oh, yeah. Glad the visual breakdown was helpful for you, Andrew. Mercy says, this is awesome. It was like a one-man show. Do you think I was both me and Brad? I considered briefly altering the Brad scenes just enough. I'm like, no, it's too much work. You'll have limited time here. But I agree with you. Brad did have great hair. He was here for that. Kevin says, while a liturgical service with assigned readings, including many that make the response more of a question, thanks be to God, all is to be interpreted through the gospel, the reading for which we stand. Yes. I think that's a really helpful thing that a lot of evangelicals maybe do intuitively, which is to say, intuitively we sort of see Brian McLaren talks about it as like if you put a book, if you open up a book and set it on a table, and the spine is like Jesus, and all the Old Testament leads up to Jesus, and the New Testament sort of flows out. And so you have this sort of higher weight given to the Gospels, which is what you're saying, Kevin. And I think a lot of evangelicals do that intuitively, but they don't necessarily, they're not aware that is like an actual way to interpret the Bible and to understand some of these texts. And so they think that everything, they talk as though everything in the Bible, no, everything's the same. It's all equally authoritative, and it's really not. It's really not. And they don't live that way either. Corey comes in with Brad's final statement of, nah, you're still going to hell. Literal or metaphorical hell? Oh, good, Mike. I'm glad you're taking notes for your family Christmas gatherings. Yes, Brad was a respectable chap, wasn't he? Oh, thanks, Cardelia. I appreciate that. I had fun with that one. Andrew says that he's hearing that the way to get to the best interpretation is to read more, then we can understand the world of the author. Yeah, I'm for that approach. Jake. Hi, Jake. Glad to have you here today. Have you ever heard of or explored the concept of biblical theology, the idea that the Bible is a unified whole, not just an anthology of different stories of different authors? I'm trying to think. Have I ever heard of the concept of biblical theology? I'm sure at some point I've heard of that concept, yes. But the idea that you say that the Bible is a unified whole, not just an anthology of different stories of different authors, I think that is one really, really, really helpful way to come at this ancient collection of manuscripts and stories and poetry and historical accounts. I think it's really, really helpful to sometimes take a big step back and be like, let's look at how all these things fit together and what sort of themes we might notice or how they play off each other. I think that's a really helpful way. And sometimes it's really helpful to zoom all the way in. Be like, let's look at just this word and see what it might be saying to us. Phil, I fooled somebody. Yes. Yeah, Melanie adds, what's frustrating is the number of conservative evangelicals who hang up their skirts and dresses for pants or cut their hair short, but still can't see that there can be something other than a literal interpretation of the Bible. Yeah, well said. Andrew says, would you say that we should let the Bible speak on its own terms, and when we try to speak our own authorities into it, that's when we get distorted views? Should we let the Bible speak on its own terms? I guess I just want to say sometimes, but I don't really know how. Again, because the Bible is a written document that has been transcribed and translated and passed on through many cultures, orally for hundreds of years before it's ever written down. I guess I'm not really sure how we let the Bible speak for itself, because any time we come to it, whether it's reading, maybe we go to the oldest manuscripts that we have and we try to read it in this like ancient language, or maybe we try to read interpretations. My point is, whenever we come to it, we're doing some interpretive work just by reading it. So I'm not really sure that the Bible can really speak on its own terms. But I think maybe what you're saying is, if point 0 is the Bible speaking on its own terms, and point 100 is just having no care at all for maybe what the Bible was originally intended to say or mean, I guess we can move closer to point 0. So maybe that's what you're saying, is to do the work to move closer to point 0. So I think there is a lot of value and merit to that. And also, I think it's okay to relax a little bit and let the Bible be a living document where maybe it meant one thing back then, but it can mean a different thing now. And maybe that's okay. Yeah, maybe it just has different meanings. And that's okay. So anyway, I don't know if that responded to your question, but Jesse says, I really liked the point that you said that we use roughly the same basic principles that traditionalists use to interpret. Yeah, I resent the fact that many of my ex-colleagues in the evangelical conservative world refuse to sort of grant that I'm still using a lot of the same biblical interpretive tools and hermeneutics. I'm just landing at different conclusions now, or I'm adding in other tools to my toolbox that sort of make me arrive at different conclusions. But yeah, it's so many ways it's the same exact freaking tools. Starkovich says, the evangelicals that you're associated with read the Gospels as a way to get the mission of Jesus and then universalize much of the Pauline writings. Yeah, this is a super, I would say a common mistake is to universalize much of the Pauline writings and forget or just ignore the fact that Paul was not writing theological documents for anyone after him to sort of have capital T truth. It's not what he was writing. He was writing letters to friends. He was writing letters to struggling church plants that were breaking apart at the seams, that Paul himself started and had a lot of motivation. There's a lot at stake in these church plants for Paul. So yeah, he sometimes got real intense and like how to keep this thing from falling apart. Yeah, they weren't intended to be universal, timeless truths. They gotta ground them in the history in which they were written. Mercy asks, can I talk a little bit about how the patriarchy, homophobia, etc. has influenced the translations? I could, but I would say it would be me just sort of riffing, because this is not a ton of, I haven't done a ton of work in that area, so I don't want to pretend like I have I don't really have great answers for that. I have intuitions, and my intuitions are that that I could imagine someone who's working on a translation. If they come to, let's just say they're going from Greek to Latin, or Latin to German. Let's just say they come to a particular word that in their language has maybe multiple different directions to go with it. What my instinct is that if scholar A could have taken A, B, or C as a way to translate the word, if B or C at all could be used to maybe undermine or throw in or cast doubt on a established system or an established doctrine of the church, if words B and C could at all sort of tweak that, but word A would sort of maintain the integrity of that, then my intuition is that most translators stick with A. They stick with the translation that does the less disruption to the systems that were in place. And the systems that are in place, that's where I can then sort of back up at a larger thing and be like, yeah, that has been disproportionately influenced by patriarchal culture and by, especially you mentioned homophobia. So when it comes to translating words in some of the clobber passages, rather than go with ones that could be in some ways more accurate to the Greek word, but it would disrupt sort of the system, go with a different word, this, like the word abomination. So the in Leviticus 18 and 20, the two clobber texts there, that a male shall not lie with a male as with a wife, for it is tovah. The Hebrew word there is tovah, but in English, the English word is abomination. Abomination in English means things like vile, gross, subhuman, and none of these are words that represent tovah. They don't. Tovah means something entirely different. And so this is what I mean why when the translator comes to it, and the translator could be like, well, we could go with abomination, or we could go with culturally shameful, or we could go with is offensive to our people. Like, let's go with abomination, because the other ones were maybe could have undone some of what the expectations were or the assumptions were in that system, in that process. So I don't know how well that answered your question, but this is what I imagine is that translators are incentivized to keep the system moving. And so therefore, when they do the translations, they opt for the words or the phrases that most keep the systems moving, even if that may not always most accurately represent the text from which they're translating from. All right. Yep. Kevin, I love that phrase. Time marches on as hopefully does our wrestling. I like to say transformation is the point. Just keep on. Expect that change is going to come. Oh, thanks for the compliments on the riff. Oh yeah, you're going back to the idea of moving to point zero, reading the Bible on its own terms. Yeah. So I think we can talk about it in terms of these spectrums of trying to really get at the original intent of the author and the culture and all that, versus really not caring about that at all. And I think we can do work I think there can be value in both ends of the spectrum, BT dubs. But I do think there is a time and a place to really try to move to that end of the spectrum to really understand that. All right, it is 2:45, and if you are join me since I had a chance to say this, if you're watching on Facebook, I'd love for you to like my page, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'd love if you would subscribe to my channel and join me every Wednesday at 2 p.m. for my live perspective shift show. You've been watching the little scrolling ticker here. You can go to colbymartin.substack.com and sign up for my free newsletter called Perspective Shift. And then tonight, also on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Live, my wife and I, we do a thing called the Kate and Colby Show, and we're doing it live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. And tonight we're going to be joined by Shalene Kendrick and Holland Fields of the podcast and the resource hub known as Desert Voices. And I'm really impressed with these two women. And so if you haven't yet, set another alarm in your phone to come back at 7 p.m. And that's going to be at the Kate and Colby Show on YouTube and Facebook. As for me, that is my show for the day. Well, I put that comment up when I was trying to hide that. Hide that. I want to thank Brad for being my guest today. Thanks for hanging out with me and letting me ask you some questions that I hope will stick with you and everyone else. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Brad and that it might be helpful for you as you can engage with those in your life who insist that you are picking and choosing and they are not. My friends, let's put that lie to rest once and for all. All right. I love you all. It's been good to be with you. I wish you a happy rest of your week, and I'll see you next time here on Perspective Shift. This week's episode of Perspective Shift, I'm going to now invite you to do one of three things, or do them all if you're an overachiever. First, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to my free Perspective Shift newsletter. You can do that by going to colbymartin.substack.com. This will ensure that each week the articles that I write arrive safely in your inbox. Second, if you're watching this on YouTube, just go ahead and hit subscribe on my channel. That'd be awesome. And or if you're watching this on Facebook, would you click like on my page? For me, this is a win-win in that it helps me know that you're out there and that you care. Plus, it helps you know when I'm going live. For all my other work, including books that I've written or sermons that I've preached, head on over to colbymartinonline.com. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me live next week.